Welcome back to the Deep Dive Learner. Today is April 22nd, 2026, and we are gearing up for a highly anticipated date on the calendar.
Oh, absolutely. Monday, May 4th.
Yeah, May 4th. The official kickoff for AFT Dice Season 12, Round 17. And, imagine walking into a stadium where the mathematical model sitting on the coach's desk says you have a 0% chance of winning.
Right, before a single die is even rolled on the pitch.
Exactly. You're lacing up your boots, but the spreadsheet has already decided your fate. And that is the exact reality staring down several teams right now. So our mission today is laser-focused on the official Round 17 preview data.
And there is a lot of data to get through.
There really is. We need to decode the upcoming matchups, the venues, and most importantly, those complex four-part stat lines. The ones defining each team's momentum right now. The pictures. Okay, let's unpack this because if you are looking at the preview data with us, you're seeing sequences like 18-4-12-0. And I think a great way to visualize this, think of each team's four-number stat line like a combination lock or like a digital fingerprint.
I actually really like that analogy. It fits perfectly.
Thanks. Yeah, because we don't need to know the complex algorithm behind the AFT Dice game to see clearly who holds the master keys this season and, well, who is completely locked out.
No, you don't. And looking at the sheer disparity across the league right now, as we approach round 17, the numbers reveal a season of extreme haves and have-nots.
Oh, totally. Which brings us right to the top of the table. You literally can't look at the round 17 preview without your eyes immediately jumping to the just staggering numbers produced by the league's titans.
Yeah, the heavyweights are bringing some serious firepower this round.
Let's look at the Western Bulldogs. They are boasting a massive 18-4-12-0 stat line.
18 in that primary metric, it's huge.
It is. And they're facing off against Fremantle, who, they're sitting at 14-7-9-0. And this is all going down at Marvel Stadium.
Right, and you can't talk about the Bulldogs without also bringing in St. Kilda. They're over at the MCG playing Melbourne. St. Kilda is walking in with a 17-5-11.
Another absolutely dominant first number.
Exactly. Both matchups feature a team with an elite primary metric, that 18 and 17 going against highly competent challengers, right? Because Melbourne is holding a 13-7-9-0.
Right, 13 and a 14 aren't bad by any stretch.
Not at all. But what's fascinating here is how the pressure sits entirely on the Western Bulldogs and St. Kilda to maintain their dominant numerical superiority.
Wait, really? You think the pressure's on the leaders? I have to push back on that a little bit. If you're Fremantle or Melbourne and you're staring across the pitch at a team with an 18 or a 17 in that primary stat column, do these numbers intimidate you, or do they just, provide a clear target on the leader's backs?
Well, look at the second tumbler, the midfield transition. The Bulldogs have an 18 in attack, but only a 4 in the midfield.
Oh, right. And Fremantle has a 7.
Exactly. So Fremantle has a clear advantage there. But that heavy primary dominance of an 18 fundamentally warps the scoring zone.
So even if Fremantle controls the ball more in the midfield,
the Bulldogs' margin for error on offensive dice rolls is practically non-existent. When they get the ball, they score. So if their 18 fails to produce because the dice go cold, they don't have the midfield control to fall back on.
Ah, I see. So if they stumble, it's not that Fremantle played a tactical masterclass, it's that the Bulldogs collapsed under their own imbalance.
Precisely. They have to play a perfect game mechanically.
Wow. Okay, so that's what happens when you have an elite team facing a competent challenger. But what happens when an elite team doesn't face a competent challenger?
You get a mismatch. A severe one.
Yeah, let's talk about the mismatches because looking at the data, the starkest contrast is easily the Geelong Cats versus Port Adelaide at GMHBA Stadium. Geelong is sitting on 16-6-10-0. And Port Adelaide, they're at 3-10-6-0.
A 16 against a 3.
It's brutal. And it's not just them. Over at Marvel Stadium, Essendon is bringing a 4-10-6-0 against Carlton's 12-8-8 near.
Right. Another massive gulf in the numbers.
And finally, you've got Collingwood at 8-8-7-1 against the GWS Giants at 15-6-9-1 at the MCG.
So why does this matter to you as a listener? In games with a massive statistical gap like Geelong's 16 against Port Adelaide's 3, the story isn't about who is favored.
No, the math already decided that.
Right. The story is about the resilience of the underdog. It's about survival. Port Adelaide has a 10 in midfield transition, which is elite ball control, but they spend all this energy moving the ball only to smash a measly 3-rated attack against Geelong's 10-rated defense.
Right. Mechanically, they have no safety net.
Yeah.
Every offensive dice roll has to be a maximum critical hit.
Exactly. But I want to look at the GWS Giants and Collingwood. The Giants have a strong 15-6-9-1 standing against Collingwood's perfectly balanced, if, mediocre 8-8-7-1.
Yeah, and notice how Collingwood has a 1 in that final column. It matches the GWS Giants 1.
Which is very rare.
Extremely rare. Every other team we've mentioned so far has a 0 in that situational modifier column. It's these subtle anomalies in the data where a much lower-ranked team matches an elite team in a specific metric. That's exactly where the magic of the game happens.
It throws a total wrench into the forecasting. It introduces volatility. Collingwood possesses a specialized trait that perfectly mirrors the Giants' own wild card.
So in chaotic moments, they're suddenly on equal footing.
Right, a single reroll could swing a massive point differential.
That is just so cool. Okay, so moving from games with these massive statistical gaps, I want to look at the matchups where the numbers are agonizingly close.
The middle of the pack trench warfare.
Yes, because if mismatches are about survival, these games are about breaking out of that gridlock. Let's look at the Brisbane Lions against the Sydney Swans at the Gabba. Brisbane is 6-9-7-0. Sydney is 7-9-7-0.
Stop right there. Look at those numbers again.
Yeah, it's wild. Their secondary, tertiary, and quaternary numbers are completely identical. 9-7-0 across the board for both teams.
Which makes the incredibly slim margin in the primary number. That's 6 versus 7, the entire defining factor of the matchup.
That is so tense. I mean, we also have the Gold Coast Suns at 11-8-8-0 versus the Adelaide Crows at 9-8-8-8-0.
Another extremely tight matchup.
Yeah, but here's where it gets really interesting. Hawthorn versus North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. Hawthorn's stat line is 10-7-7-2.
That final number.
Right. They're the only team in the entire Round 17 preview with a 2 in that final column. North Melbourne is sitting on 5-9-7-0. So how do unique anomalies like that final 2 give Hawthorn an unpredictable edge?
Well, it's a level 2 situational modifier. It creates a complete nightmare for the opposing defensive coordinator.
Because there's no baseline for it.
Exactly. North Melbourne can drill all week to prepare for Hawthorn's 10-point attack, but how do you mathematically prepare for a level 2 modifier when the standard probability model of the league operates on a baseline of 0?
You just can't. It's a secret weapon right in plain sight.
It introduces systemic chaos, which is exactly how you break out of the middle of the pack.
Man, that is going to be a fascinating game to watch. All right, so we've looked at the top, we've explored the middle, and we've broken down the mismatches. But, the narrative of Season 12 isn't complete without looking at the absolute bottom of the table.
Bestseller dwellers.
Yeah, where the data tells a story of sheer desperation. I'm talking about the West Coast Eagles versus Richmond at Optus Stadium.
It's a rough one.
It is.
Yeah.
West Coast is bringing a 2-10-6-0. Richmond is bringing a 1-11-5-0.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a casual observer might just ignore a matchup between teams with primary metrics of a 2 and a 1.
I mean, you can't blame them, right?
Sure, but this is actually a critical focal point for you to pay attention to as a fan. This isn't about jockeying for playoff positioning. This is a pure, unvarnished battle to avoid absolute last place.
Just to put this into perspective for you, you add West Coast and Richmond's first numbers together, and you get a 3. The Western Bulldogs have an 18 all by themselves.
It really highlights how difficult Season 12 has been for these two squads.
Absolutely. I mean, it's basically a fight for pride at this point. They both have elite midfield numbers at 10 and an 11, so they can move the ball, but neither of them has the brute force to actually finish the job.
It's going to be a pure battle of attrition. Just a gritty, desperate survival game.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that is a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive. I mean, we've covered the incredible spectrum of AFT Dice Season 12, Round 17 today.
We really have, from the top to the bottom.
Right, from the dizzying heights of the Western Bulldogs and St. Kilda, all the way down to the identical gridlock of Brisbane and Sydney. And, of course, that gritty survival battle between West Coast and Richmond.
It's a slate of games that really tests the limits of the mathematical models.
So what does this all mean? Well, it means that May 4th is just around the corner, and now you hold the statistical roadmap to the entire round.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. We've spent this time breaking down the exact numerical values that define these teams right now. But if the data perfectly predicts the hierarchy before the dice are even rolled, Does the game itself actually change the narrative, or is it just a formality to confirm the numbers?
Oh, that's a deep question.
Think about how much faith you put into data to predict the future versus the chaotic, unquantifiable nature of the game itself.
Are we watching a confirmation of the math or a rebellion against it?
Love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the numbers, keep an eye on those combination locks, and we will see you next time.